Is the Citadelle Day More Easter egg possible with only a knife? Well, this is what I asked myself a few weeks ago, and just thinking about it, I knew there was going to be some huge problems. Like, for example, how am I going to shoot the Raven out of the air for the Raven's Talon if obviously I only have a knife? Or how am I going to redirect the lasers near the Voltrade machine to get that part? Let alone, how am I even going to start to deal with the boss fight? But I was incredibly determined to find a way, so I made a loadout with some good gobble guns and jumped straight into a game. Going into this, I already knew not to underestimate the knife because it can actually be incredibly powerful if you use it right. Now, the base knife is definitely not good because it stops one hitting at round 4, but it kind of has a regular progression of a gun because you can upgrade its rarity, pack-a-punch it, and even melee macchiato gives it a huge damage boost. So those 3 things are essentially my top priority, but I need to build up some points first. I got extremely lucky because at the end of the round, I got this nuke drop, which put me right around 6,000 points, so I went ahead and opened most of the doors around the map. That of course includes the actual castle doors, which as soon as I opened, I went and made sure to purchase the most important thing, which I mentioned earlier, is melee macchiato. Now, if you watch any of the previous videos where I beat Terminus or Liberty Falls with just a knife, then you'll already know about the Vampiric Extraction augment, which is just when you kill a zombie with a melee weapon, then it heals you. But when I was planning on how to actually beat this Easter egg with just a knife, I decided to switch it up and put on the Espresso augment instead, which just makes you swing your knife way faster. And don't forget about just the base damage boost that melee macchiato gives, because now I was actually able to one-hit the zombies again, which felt really nice. Moving on from that though is one of the first things I worried about, which is how are we going to get the locks off the grate, but luckily you can just knife them, which is really simple. Or can you? As you can see, this bottom lock was giving me trouble, and if this was going to be a game ender, I would have honestly just laughed. But I had a trick up my sleeve, which luckily did actually get the lock off. But now with all 3 locks off, we have to kill the first doppelgas, which usually takes a while actually. But as you can see, the knife just takes it out in literally like 5 seconds. Now with Pack-a-Punch open, it's time to actually start doing the Easter egg. And the first step I did was super easy, where all you have to do is in the stamina room collect the 4 torn pages, but if I'm being honest, I don't know all the spawn locations, so I kind of just went around the room and held square. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have been so stubborn and probably just looked up a video, but I eventually found it right here on this wall, and I still don't even see it looking back at it, but I got it. So I started to just run around and do all the random like miscellaneous steps of the Easter egg, like the horseshoe, which I wasn't sure if you had to shoot down or not, but luckily you could just jump up and knife it down. Now the next step I wanted to do was shoot the Raven out of the tunnels, and this is what it normally looks like, where you go down the slide and just have to shoot it on your way out, but obviously we can't do that. So I thought for a while and remembered that you can actually like throw grenades and stuff at the spawn room through the little tunnel, and you can actually get the bird to come out doing that. Right here with my Molotov, I thought I just missed, and I probably did because the flames were literally on the ceiling, so I just spent the rest of my time trying to get another grenade or something to throw. And I didn't even have to kill a zombie or anything because I just ran past this random frag grenade laying on the ground, so I guess it was my lucky day. So I lined up the grenade and cooked it until it was just about to explode and threw it in there, and you can hear it explode in the tunnel, but as you can see, nothing's coming out. So at this point I was really questioning, does this even work? Did they change it or anything like that? I'm even zooming in. And because I was so confused, I decided to go down the tunnel the normal way just to see if that bird is actually there or if something's wrong with my game, and you can see the bird is not there. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's just because I didn't talk to Kraft at the very beginning of the game, and I figured this out way later.
I know who you are.
So for the time being, I decided to switch my focus onto the 4 elemental swords. And these were definitely going to be a challenge because no, I'm indeed not counting the swords as a knife, so that means I can't kill or really do much with them. The first one I picked up was the dragon sword because I knew for sure it didn't require any kills, and it's also pretty easy. And just to be safe, I killed all the zombies in the round and only saved 1 before I did all the cauldrons, and I did that during a double points too, so I got a ton of points from that. And some of those points went straight into stamina up just to make the fire sword step where you're running with the fire a little bit easier. So with all these precautionary measures, I was able to easily get the dragon sword. Now with one of the 4 swords done, it was time to move on to the next one, which I chose the Raven. I quickly went ahead and picked up the antiquity and made my way all the way over to the spawn room, where I also opened the little safe. Now, as most of you know, all the little elemental orbs just need to get sucked up in the hole in the ground, and if I can just save a zombie, then it's not going to be too bad. But I honestly don't remember what I was thinking, but I ended up just killing the zombie, probably to progress through the rounds and get some more points while I'm doing this step. But that's exactly what happened, and I was still able to complete the step with all the zombies too, so I guess it was kind of a good decision. The orb finally went back to the little safe in the wall, and I was rewarded with the Raven sword. A lot of people say that the Raven one is the hardest one to get, so now that that's done, I'm kind of looking up to the other ones. For my third sword, I decided to build the electric one, so I grabbed the first lightning rod next to the dead shot machine. And the next one we need, usually you have to shoot the electric box with dead wire, so that might seem like an issue, but if you simply throw a shock charge at the electricity box, it counts as kind of the dead wire effect and it drops down the lightning rod. And last but definitely not easiest is just the one that drops from a zombie in their quick revive room, and I wasn't seeming to get it. It got really sketchy in this room because there was just so many zombies. Right after almost dying, I saw the lightning rod just laying down on the floor, so now I could leave, but I decided to kill a lot of the zombies in this room and then go ahead and pack a punch my knife. After that, I also went straight to the arsenal and upgraded my knife to blue and also put light mend on it because I heard it does extra damage against doppelgas, and let me tell you, it definitely does. Even though we have all those upgrades, we're not going to be able to use them yet because when you're upgrading the electricity sword, the game makes you keep your unupgraded sword because it's going to be shocked by electricity every about 30 seconds as long as you're not going outside of the range of the little storm, and then you have to hit the pot again and you have to do that 3 times. And of course, Treyarch didn't want you to just cheese it and run around with one zombie, so there's going to be a bunch of purple-eyed zombies and vermin that spawn in, and the vermin can be super dangerous. But luckily it's not too many, so you can kind of still train them around and just stay within the radius of the storm still, and I was able to get it done fairly easily. Now, I saved the special one for last, which is of course the light sword, and this is because I honestly had no idea how I was going to do it. As I'm sure most of you know, this one spawns in the little yellow glowing parasites that you have to kill with your sword in order to gain entry into the little upgrade room. And when I say you have to kill them with your sword, I mean you have to, because there's literally no other way to go about the step. I tried out a bunch of different things, like simply killing them with my knife to see if I could get the glowing yellow effect on my knife, but none of it worked. I tried to maybe look up any ways to do it, but it looked like all across the board there wasn't a way. Because I didn't want the challenge to just end because I couldn't kill a few parasites, I wanted to allow myself 4 parasite kills with the sword just to see how much farther we can keep going. So with that, I was able to actually enter the room, but now I faced another problem of how am I going to shoot the runes on the walls to actually get them to go into the sword. Luckily, a lot of the time, the ones you need move into positions where you can just simply jump and hit them with your knife. It took a while because some of the annoying ones like this, I just physically wasn't able to hit, so I had to wait for them to move and then I could hit them. And now with that done, all 4 of the swords are fully complete. So the next step I wanted to figure out was the lasers next to Voltrade, where you have to redirect them in order to get the part because I had no idea how I was going to do this. I first tried to just melee it with my knife, but nothing happened, so I got a little desperate and tried to melee it with my sword, and it actually started glowing, which was looking good. But when I tried to hit it again to redirect it where it actually needed to go, I couldn't do it because you need to be standing in a certain area for it to actually go where it needs to be, so this wasn't going to work. But you might remember from earlier in the game, when you can't quite reach something with your knife, there is one thing that you can do. So I pulled out the tomahawks and I kept on throwing non-stop, and I mean I was probably sat here for like 5 minutes non-stop throwing tomahawks, and the laser would keep moving back and forth, but it didn't look like I was making any progress. And the reason it seemed like I was making no progress is because I wasn't standing far back, which is where I needed to be, and honestly I didn't want to go there because it would be hard to aim, but I did it anyway. I stood at the very back and directly where the laser was pointing, and I lined up the tomahawk hoping that it would work, and when I hit it, it actually did redirect to the other laser finally. So now that I confirmed that I actually can use the tomahawks to redirect them, it was all just about patience and actually aiming the tomahawks correctly. Thankfully though, the rest of the lasers weren't actually too bad because I could get a lot closer up to them. And after a ton of trial and error, I finally managed to get this part, which was the Paladin's Brooch. And as soon as I got this, I placed it in the little ritual circle directly outside, which is going to spawn a bunch of zombies, but is definitely worth it because we get to unlock the incantations. And I might add that the incantations are an absolute savior for this challenge because you actually can kill a lot of zombies pretty reliably with them. But I put up the incantations for a little bit to grab a concussion grenade because if you can remember, I never got the Raven out of the tunnel, so I threw a concussion grenade up in there, and as you can see, because I've talked to Dr. Kraft, now it will actually fly out. But just like most of the things in this Easter egg, how am I going to shoot it because I clearly need to shoot it down or do something like that. And this time, something told me that the tomahawk wasn't just going to solve all my problems because I really do not want to try to aim that high in the sky and shoot a moving bird out with a tomahawk. So what I did is I got a frag grenade and located the bird, which just flies around the entire map in circles, and I cooked the grenade up perfectly, hopefully. This was the only grenade I had for now, so I was determined to get it right, and luckily I actually was able to just blow him up out of the sky and the talon slowly fell down. And right after that, I brought that to its respective ritual site so I could unlock the dark incantations now, which is an alright one. But I was already moving on to the next one, which required 3 Molotovs, so I crafted only 2 because I was hoping a zombie would drop one because at this point I was pretty broke on salvage. And and I ran to the front of the castle where you have to light these 3 kind of blanket looking things. I honestly don't know what they are, but you have to light them on fire, which is going to spawn a bunch of zombies. But sadly, none of those zombies it spawns dropped me the last Molotov I needed, so I kind of just went about other steps hoping that the zombies from that would drop it, but sadly it never did. So now that I finished the light incantation and still didn't get a Molotov, you would think I would stop being stubborn and just craft it, but I moved on to the rune step. There's not really a whole lot to say about this step because it was just me pausing my game and inputting the rune that I got while I just saved a zombie. Once I inputted all of them successfully, I took an image of my book, and I honestly have quite a lot of trouble with this step even though it's not that hard because all the eyes just look so similar. But I turned on all the ones that I think it showed and I was usually right. The nice thing about this step that I didn't realize at first is when you get a trap wrong, it won't reset all your progress, it just won't really do anything. Trap after trap, I kept on finishing them until I eventually got to the last one, and now this entire step was done, so I decided to just bite the bullet and buy a Molotov. And now that all 3 of the things were lit, it spawns in a doppelgas, which I literally just obliterated, and this is what I'm talking about when you should not underestimate the knife in this game. But I jumped directly into the ritual circle that I needed to put it into, so I just did it while I was there. It's not really too hard. And now that was all of the incantations finally complete. With that done, I saved the zombie and went up to each of the respective knights with their incantations and their sword and completed the step where you have to inspect them in front of it. The first sword I did was the Raven one, and for some reason it just wouldn't start glowing, and I'm not sure what I was doing wrong. Because I couldn't get that one to work, I just did all the other ones first, and then when I did the Raven one last, for some reason it worked. So then I grabbed the Mystic Orb that they spawned in, and I did the first challenge, which I believe is the hardest. Now, at the time I was playing this game, I thought you had to stand in the orb until it goes away, but after a little bit of time, I realized that you just have to run through them and then you're done with it. So because I thought you had to stand in the orb while there's zombies attacking you and stuff, that definitely made it a lot harder, but because I saved the zombie for most of the first orbs, it wasn't really too bad. I mainly used the incantations when there was a ton of zombies attacking me at once, and it was able to clear out most of the horde. And after only about a minute, I was already done with the challenge. And the next one on the list is the fire one, so I quickly picked up the fire incantations and placed the orb in the fire spot. I simply used the 2 incantations on all the zombies, and that literally completed the entire challenge, which is why I think the first one is a lot harder than these ones. It was just as easy for the electric incantations as well as the dark incantations, and I was done with the step. With pretty much all the steps of the Easter egg done, I headed to the secret room in the wall, which reminds me a lot of Dead of the Night, and I picked up the boss summoning part. But I wasn't going to go into the boss fight just yet because I still only have a purple knife, which I really want to get legendary. However, there's a bit of an issue with that because, I want the legendary knife, but if I make it past round 30, then the zombies are going to get a huge damage increase that is going to make the boss fight a lot harder. So essentially, I'm racing to get the 5,000 salvage I need, but I'm not trying to go through that many rounds. But that's when I remembered something that really helped me out to get the salvage, which is these boxes around the map, and as you can see, they can either spawn a parasite or about 150 salvage. And I know that might not seem like a lot, but there's a lot of these boxes around the map, and that 150 salvage from each one, as long as you're getting lucky, can add up really fast. But as soon as I saw the Sam trial spawn right in front of me, that gave me the idea to actually complete it. And it was a good thing I did because all the loot wasn't really that good, but it gave me the 700 salvage I needed. And now with my fully upgraded knife and my favorite incantations in my inventory, which is the light ones, I was ready to begin the boss fight. I was essentially about to figure out if I could even really attack the boss or if it was just going to absolutely slap me. The second I got into the boss fight, I didn't even really know what to do because he was just spamming attacks, but eventually I ran up to him and knifed his leg, and I did a microscopic amount of damage, but at the end of the day it was damage. So in order to try and do more damage, I popped my Killjoy to get the insta-kill, which does more damage against him, as well as my Aether Shroud, and started attacking him, but if I'm being honest, it didn't really do nothing. Eventually, after attacking him a decent amount, I popped his leg armor off, and that's where the glowing spot was, meaning I could actually do a lot of damage. But the bad thing is I was quickly running out of armor plates, and I couldn't be doing this for forever. So now with no armor plates left and 1 Aether Shroud left, I tried to use that and hit his glowing spot, but he instantly hit me up into the air, which wasted most of the time. But as you can see, I was doing like decent damage against him with a few hits hitting for 17,000. But that was in exchange for my dying wish, and now I have literally no quick revive. I have 1 self revive left to rely on. At this point I was kind of desperate, so I popped my mutant injection to try and do as much damage as I possibly could, and I was doing a decent bit of damage to him. But what I didn't realize is whenever he was stomping on me, it was taking off a lot of the time from my mutant injection. Now he's practically drained me of everything I have, and I still don't know how to attack him efficiently. However, I at least did get him low enough where he would go in the middle and kind of go invincible, which spawns in zombies so I could get some armor back. I tried to just spam all the incantations that spawned in, but the sad thing is even just against the zombies, I was still taking a lot of damage and almost dying. And keep that in mind with the fact that this boss fight is only going to get worse, and at this point I was losing a lot of hope. But when he came back in, I tried out a new strategy where I would quickly run up to his leg, knife him, and run really fast to the other side, and it actually looked like it was working a little bit. I was able to get around him, but sometimes he could still stomp on me and do some damage. I almost thought the game was glitching because he would be stomping completely in the opposite direction like that and I would still be taking damage. But I found one thing that was going to absolutely change the course of this boss fight. As you can see, I run up him once with my knife and slide to the opposite direction and he literally cannot do anything about it. It almost locks him in where he just keeps doing that until there's like a doppelgast or something that slows me down. But I was at least happy to know there's a way to do reliable damage against him even though it's so slow. And when I say it's slow, I mean it, because I was sat here doing this for the longest time and my hands even started to get tired. Which is not good, because when zombies start spawning and you're still trying to do damage to the boss, I really had to focus to not die in situations like this. But a lot of the time, he would just stomp on the zombies and a lot of them would be gone pretty quickly. And because, like I said earlier, I started to get tired of doing this, I was eager to speed things up, so I eventually started hitting him multiple times before I would slide away, which was risky, but it seemed to be working. I now got down to the final stage of the boss fight where there's barely any room and now he's just constantly full sprinting, so it's definitely a lot more chaotic. And when you mix chaos with me being tired from doing this for so long, this is about what you get.
Time to go, some of them. Could end up well done if I'm not careful. Pain is only temporary, but I hope stuff's hurting soon.
Just like that, the entire run was over and he literally has a smidgen of HP left. And honestly, I think if I wouldn't have lost Melee Macchiato after my first down, I think I would have been able to do it. So I'm gonna have to ask you guys to cut me some slack here and just... I beat it, right? So yes, Citadelle de Morts is possible with just the knife. If you exclude these 4 parasite kills.